So today's session, we're going to be talking about the properties of water. And as I mentioned yesterday, water is a polar molecule because there's an uneven distribution of the electrons between the oxygen and the hydrogens. The electrons are transferred over from the oxygen or from the hydrogen to the oxygen, spends more time orbiting around the oxygen than it does the hydrogens. Therefore, the oxygen portion of a water molecule is negatively charged, where the hydrogen portions are positively charged, thus making the molecule a polar molecule. Because it's a polar molecule, things can dissolve in it, like salts. Other polar molecules can dissolve in water. Non-polar molecules do not dissolve in water, though. It's like lipids. Now, polar molecules are attracted to other molecules, thus water forms bonds. So if you notice here, we have hydrogen bonds, where a hydrogen, which is positively charged, is bonding with the oxygen here, which is negatively charged. And you see that bond also occurring over here, and over here, and over here. Now, these hydrogen bonds are pretty weak bonds, but it's because of the polarity of the water molecule that other molecules, such as salt, which is NaCl, sodium chloride, can also dissolve in water. Now, hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are another type of bonds. We had in yesterday's session ionic bonds and covalent bonds, but today we're going to talk a little bit more about hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds are weak bonds, and they form between hydrogen and other atoms. There's a property called cohesion, which is the attraction between molecules of the same substance. So when water clings to water, that's called cohesion. You also have adhesion. So whenever you've been measuring using a graduated cylinder and you put water in a graduated cylinder, you'll notice a little bubble that forms on the top. The reason for that is because part of the water molecules are clinging to the sides of the graduated cylinder. That is adhesion. Whereas some of the water molecules on the top of the bubble area are clinging to each other, which would be cohesion. So adhesion is the attraction between molecules of different substances in plants and between unlike molecules, for example. So another property of water is that it's the universal solvent. That means when you're making a solution, most things dissolve in water, if they're polar, that is. So here we have a picture that is depicting the chlorine, and which is negatively charged, and you'll notice all of the hydrogens, which are positively charged portion of the water molecule, kind of surrounding the chlorine atom, whereas the oxygens, which are the negatively charged part of the water, are surrounding the sodiums. Now, a solution is a mixture of two or more substances in which the molecules of one substance is evenly distributed. So basically what you have is one substance being dissolved into another. The substance that is dissolved is referred to as the solute. So the solute is a substance that's dissolved in the solvent that makes the solution. The solvent is the substance in which the solute is being dissolved in. And that's that portion of the solution. So you have a solute, the part that is being dissolved, and the solvent, the part that's the thing that's doing the dissolving. So, for example, if I was to drink coffee, and you'd be in deep trouble if I was to drink coffee because I don't drink anything with caffeine. It makes me too hyper. But anyways, if I was to drink coffee, and let's say that I put sugar in my coffee, okay, the coffee would be the solvent. And the sugar would dissolve in the coffee, so that would be the solute. The sugar would be the solute, the coffee would be the solvent, and together I'd have a solution. Now, other properties of water include that water's highest density is at 4 degrees Celsius, and this is why ice floats, because what happens as molecules, as it gets colder and colder, the molecules become closer and closer together, and hydrogen bonds are formed within them. At 4 degrees Celsius, something occurs where the hydrogen bonds expand, pushing the molecules further apart. So actually, the molecules of ice are less dense than the molecules of water. liquid water, that is. And therefore, since it's less dense, it floats on top of the water. And that's why also when you freeze like a water bottle, you want to make sure you dump out some of the water, because what will happen is as it freezes and gets to that 4 degrees Celsius, it will start to expand and then the bottle would explode. The other properties of water is that it has a boiling point of 100 degrees Celsius and a freezing point of 0 degrees Celsius. Now, another property of water is that water is the only substance that has a pH of 7. We'll be talking about pH in a little bit, but a pH basically is the amount of hydrogen ions compared to the amount of hydroxide ions. And water is the only one that has an equal proportion of hydrogen ions to hydroxide ions, making it a neutral pH of 7. And tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about pH. So I hope you learned a little bit about water, and here we go. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.